The teacher looked at me, laughed in front of the entire class, and said something I'll never forget. "Yeah, and I wish for $1,000,000 and not to have to deal with you anymore." That was her response when I said I wanted an A on her final exam. A teacher who had spent an entire year trying to make sure I failed. But what she didn't realize was that her final exam would end up doing something she never expected. It would expose everything. And by the time it was over, she would be standing in the principal's office crying. If you've ever had a teacher, boss, or authority figure who abused their power, someone who thought they could treat people unfairly and get away with it, then this story is gonna hit different. Because today's revenge story isn't about yelling or fighting back. It's about patience, intelligence, and one perfectly timed moment of truth. So if you enjoy real revenge stories like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. This all started in 9th grade honors English. And let me say this first, I was not a perfect student. I wasn't the kid who always tried his hardest. Sometimes I procrastinated, sometimes I did the bare minimum, but one thing was true. Most teachers still liked me, even when they were frustrated with me. Except one. This teacher. She didn't just dislike me, she actively hated me, and it became obvious almost immediately. Now, the biggest reason she didn't like me, I was an athlete. Actually, 3 sports, which meant throughout the year I had to travel for games, sometimes missing class. But those absences were excused by the school. And it wasn't just sports either. I also missed class for academic competitions, math competitions, science competitions, quiz bowl tournaments, events where I was literally representing the school academically. But to her, none of that mattered. Because she had a very specific bias. She hated athletes. In her mind, athletes were lazy, undisciplined, and didn't care about academics. And since I happened to be one of the students who missed class for games, I immediately became one of her targets. And she had a very specific way of punishing us: homework. But not just normal homework, strategic homework. See, our sports teams would sometimes travel for away games, meaning we'd get home late, sometimes 10 or 11 at night. And like clockwork, the next day, she would assign double homework, massive assignments, papers, reading logs, analysis questions, way more than usual. And the craziest part? She didn't check homework every day, but somehow, every single time there was an away game, the next day was always the day she checked it. Every single time. It got to the point where it felt less like teaching and more like she was setting traps. But the homework wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was her grading, because something strange kept happening with my essays. I would get grades in the 70s or low 80s, but when I looked at the paper, there were no corrections, no red marks, no feedback, nothing. Meanwhile, the students around me would have papers that looked like a crime scene, red ink everywhere, corrections all over the page, and somehow they were getting 90s. Eventually, one assignment came back with another suspiciously low grade, and I knew something was wrong. So I asked her, calmly, "Can you explain what I did wrong?" And I'll never forget her answer. She said, "You're only working at about 70% of your capability. The other students are working at about 90% of theirs." I stared at her, trying to process what she just said. Then I asked the obvious question, "So, does that mean my paper could actually be better than someone else's, but still get a grade that's 20 points lower?" Without hesitation, she said, "Yes." That moment stuck with me, because I realized something. She wasn't grading the work. She was grading her opinion of me. And the craziest part, despite supposedly thinking I was underperforming, she recommended me for an advanced writing class a year early, which proved even she knew my writing was good. She just refused to reward it. By the end of the year, my grade was sitting in that awkward range where extra credit could help a lot. And that's when she announced an opportunity. There was a local college performing a play, Antigone. If we attended it, then wrote a 2,500-word paper analyzing it, and tied it to the themes we studied in class, we could earn extra credit. But there was a catch. You had to include the ticket, the playbill, and the paper, all turned in together. And the deadline? Monday. Now, here's where the problem started. The play only ran Friday through Sunday, which meant nobody could turn the assignment in early. And unfortunately for me, that Monday, I would be gone all day at a huge academic competition, the biggest one of the year. You had to place top 10 in previous events just to qualify, so obviously it was an excused absence. I told her about it all week, every day, and each time she told me the same thing. Just bring it Tuesday morning. Simple. So that's what I planned. Friday came, and it was chaos. I had practice after school, my mom had to pick me up, drive me home, let me shower and change, then rush me downtown to the theater, sit through the entire play. At that point, I was furious. So I opened the file metadata, showing the last save time, Saturday afternoon. Proof it had already been done. She didn't care. No credit, nothing. Just like that. Money wasted, time wasted, my mom's time wasted, and the extra credit gone. My mom was furious when she found out. But at that point, the year was almost over, so I just decided to push through until the final exam. Now, this teacher had a reputation. She bragged about something constantly. No student had ever made an A on her final exam, ever. She was proud of it, like it proved she was the toughest teacher in the school. So, on the last day of class, she asked the class a question. What's your biggest wish? Students started saying normal things. Summer break, good grades, vacation. And then I said, I wish for an A on the final exam. She laughed right in front of everyone and said, yeah, and I wish for $1 million and not to have to deal with you anymore. The class laughed, but inside, I made a promise. Fine, challenge accepted. The final exam had 100 questions, plus a 5-point bonus question. 2 hours to complete it, but if you finished early, you had to wait until the 1-hour mark to leave. So I started the test, and honestly, it wasn't that hard. 20 minutes later, I was done. Every question answered, carefully checked, but I still had 40 minutes left, and that's when I got to the bonus question. It asked things like, what did you enjoy about the class? What did you learn? What could be improved? And suddenly, I realized something. This was my moment. So I wrote, and I wrote honestly. I said I wasn't sure I learned anything because she never once gave feedback on how to improve my writing. I said my favorite part of the class was it finally being over. I brought up the homework traps, the unfair grading, the extra credit incident, and I ended with something simple, that she was the worst teacher I had ever had, and that the school was worse off with her teaching the entire 9th grade. Then I turned it in. An hour passed. The bell rang, and I walked out. The only student out of 110 students to leave that early. But exams were proctored by other teachers, so I had to wait for my mom outside. While I sat there, she appeared, holding my exam, tears in her eyes, and she said, "Meet me in the principal's office." Then she stormed away, so I walked over. Confused, but not surprised. About 45 minutes later, she arrived with my mom, still crying, screaming, almost choking between sentences. The principal listened patiently as everything unfolded. My complaints, her accusations, the entire year poured out into that room. Finally, after nearly an hour, the principal asked one question. How much was the question worth? She said, 5 bonus points. The principal nodded, then said something simple. Then don't give him the bonus points. That was it. Problem solved. When the exams were graded, I scored 98 out of 100. I missed 2 questions without the bonus points. Every other student received the bonus points.
The next highest grade? Meaning, if she had given the bonus, I would have scored 103, the first A on her final exam ever. But she tried one more thing. A few days before grades were finalized, I noticed something strange. An assignment from the second week of school had suddenly dropped 10 points, just enough to push my final grade down. My overall grade became 94.4, which at the time was a B. I couldn't prove she changed it,
Even though my records showed it should have been a 95.2, so technically, she got the last laugh. Or so she thought. That summer, the school changed its grading scale from a 7-point system to a 10-point system, meaning 90 plus became an A. So my B instantly turned into an A. And that wasn't the end of it. After complaints from multiple students, administration started monitoring her. Her homework assignments had to be approved by the department chair. She was required to accept assignments through email, and 2 years later, she was fired. Because eventually, other students began reporting the same problems. Only this time, the administration finally believed them. Looking back now, I never expected that final exam moment to trigger everything that followed. But sometimes, standing up for yourself matters, even when the person you're standing up to has authority. Because fairness matters, and eventually, the truth catches up. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button and subscribe for more unbelievable revenge stories. And tell me in the comments, what's the worst teacher, boss, or authority figure you've ever had to deal with? And more importantly, did karma ever catch up to them? Because sometimes justice takes time, but when it arrives, it's incredibly satisfying.